Hi there, welcome back. I remember the last time I mentioned I'm not certain what this is going to be about. Well, today I'm going to be moving on one of the first things I know to certainly be about, which is on God. And so, my title for this video is going to be Are you a Pharisee or a Sadducee? Yes, I know once you look at this, you're gonna think, she's already going to give a very long, boring speech about why you should be a good Christian and things like that. That's kind of right. But stick with me till the end and I might have a nice teaser for you. And so to jump quickly into this video, because I do not want it to be very long, I'm going to be starting by telling you who a Pharisee is. Now, Pharisees were Jewish people who emphasized religious purity and the laws of Moses. I'm Yoruba. It shows. They were a society of scholars and legal experts who were influential in developing Judaism. And basically, they believed in the resurrection, like when you die and you rise back to life. Although they didn't believe in the resurrection of Jesus because he hadn't come at the time. But even when he came, they didn't believe in you needed Jesus to get resurrection. But they just believed that once we die, somehow we're going to end up getting resurrected again. And they believed in the importance of oral tradition, so passing down culture and family history from generation to generation. Although in this case it was more of an emphasis on the laws of Moses. And they believed in following the laws of Moses, which is the next point. And finally, they believed in worshiping God through prayer and studying the law. So they prayed at certain points in the day and make sure they kept on reading the law, practicing it, remembering it, and ensuring not to break it. And other things they observed was ceremonial washing, so they had to make sure that they were clean before they ate or slept or had their bath or anything. If you're not doing this today, it's questioning, but doesn't mean that you need to do this to go to heaven. But if you're not doing it, it's questioning. I'm kidding. They observed the tradition of the elders, so respect for the elders and reverence for them in special manners, and focused on personal piety. Personal piety is more or less like how good I am on my inside. And they developed a synagogue, or the synagogue, as a place of worship. So basically like church, you could say, but then it was called the synagogue because he had a different reference. I'm not going to go too much into theology. We'll have that for another day. So moving on to the next on the title of my question, are you a Pharisee or a Sadducee? Who is a Sadducee? And I hope you're not listening to me right now and thinking, oh, I believe in resurrection, I do this, I'm a Pharisee, or I believe in this and I'm a Sadducee. No, just bear with me, follow through with me rather, and we'll get to the end of this. So who is a Sadducee? Sadducees were a Jewish religious and political group who opposed Jesus Christ at the time of his walk in the earth. But before Christ, they were people that were popularly known as wealthy, aristocratic sect of Judaism and held power in Palestine during the time of Jesus. That's a whole other history of theology that I'm not going to get into. Other things to note about them was that they were a Jewish priestly sect that dominated the temple and its priesthood. They were a conservative group that claimed authority based on birth, social class, and economic position. They were a group that served on the Sanhedrin, the city council that organized law courts and regulations, and they were a group that believed the written law was the only law that was obligatory in the nation. So basically kind of above the constitution or any other thing that you have. And it makes sense because if the written law was revered as the law of God, then it should be above every law, right? And what did they believe? Or instead, what did they not believe? So they did not believe in the resurrection. Basically, when you die, that's the end. They rejected the idea of spirits or angels, but somehow had mystical books by prophets who encountered mystical people, but don't believe that there were things such as spirit of angels. Moses was just a very wise man. And they believed the written law was the only law that was obligatory in the nation. So this law that wasn't inspired by any spirit or angels, that had so much stories about spirit or angels, and the law that was written by God tablet with his hand. He inscribed on the stone. They didn't believe that, but they believed this law was obligatory. It was a high law. He said, this is my problem with elitists, or no, rich elites, I would call them. Not my problem. I don't have any problem against them. But I guess the general problem. I'm not going to go into that because this is not a political platform, so we're going to leave that by the way. So basically, now that I've given this background, it's like, okay, Myron, what's the point? What do you mean by Pharisees and Sadducees, and whether or not we are one? And I'm going to read a story in Luke chapter 6, verses 5. No, sorry, not verses 5. Give me a minute. Luke chapter 6, verses 12 to 16. I'm going to give a brief story. And in this story, we see Jesus having chosen his 12 apostles, or rather, before he chose his 12 apostles, going to the synagogue to teach. And so this is Luke chapter 6, verses 6 to verses 11. And so it goes. On another Sabbath, Jesus went into a synagogue and taught. A man was there whose right hand was paralyzed. Some teachers of the law and some Pharisees wanted a reason to accuse Jesus of doing wrong. So they watched him closely to see if he would heal someone on the Sabbath. But Jesus knew their thoughts and said to the man, "Stand up and come here to the front." The man got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, what does our law allow us to do on the Sabbath? To help them or to harm? To save someone's life or to destroy it?" He looked around at them all and then said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He did so, and his hand became well again. And then the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were filled with rage and began to discuss among themselves what they could do to Jesus. These discussions eventually led to the death of Jesus. Now, you'll be like, "Oh, Mariam, but that's just the Pharisees." But wait a minute. In Matthew chapter 16, verses 1 to 5, some Pharisees and Sadducees who came to Jesus wanted to trap him. And why did they want to trap him? Well, because they wanted to prove that he was false and find something to accuse him of so that eventually he could be gotten rid of. If you don't believe me, just pick up the Bible. Read the book of Matthew. I'm not even asking you to read everything. Just read the book of Matthew and you understand. And so some Pharisees and Sadducees who came to Jesus wanted to trap him, and they asked him to perform a miracle for them to show that God approved of him. But Jesus answered, "When the sun is setting, you say, 'We're going to have fine weather because the sky is red.' And early in the morning, you say, 'It is going to rain because the sky is red and dark.' You can predict the weather by looking at the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs concerning these times. How evil and godless are the people of this day. You ask me for a miracle? No. The only miracle you will be given is the miracle of Jonah." So he sent them away. I attend Celebration Church International, and the apostle leading this church mentioned something about the miracle of Jonah, which was kind of a prophetic representation of what was going to happen in the life of Jesus, where Jonah was trapped in the belly of the fish for 3 days, and he actually died. Not just that he had a Tim Blanchard was there, and God heard his cry and decided to grant him life again for him to fulfill his mission. And basically it was a symbolic representation of the fact that Jesus would be in the earth for 3 days and then be brought back to life, which was profound. I would add a link to the sermon, I think, at the end of this video or in the bio. I'm still new to this, so basically somewhere. Moving on. What were the issues that Jesus had with them, you would ask? And I think in the next video, or rather not the next video, but the second chapter I had read, Matthew chapter 16, you already kind of got the picture of why Jesus was, upset at them. Well, for those that don't understand, I'll put it more into context. A series of other stories would allow you to realize, yes, I am Yoruba. The factors don't want to leave me. Anyway, a series of I guess other stories being shared will allow you to realize that these Pharisees and Sadducees were constantly angry and bitter when Jesus Christ came on the scene and performed a miracle. And it was in a manner that wasn't either giving them record or, for the Sadducees, prestige, because they were the elect. And for the Pharisees, it wasn't according to the law. In most cases, both of them, it wasn't according to the law. They believe on the Sabbath day should be Sabbath and everything should be by a certain strict manner, a certain strict form. They believe you have to follow these certain procedures. The moment you're not doing this in this way, in this manner, there's a problem. And you'll wonder, well, how does this have to do with me? Why do I need to answer the question, am I a Pharisee or Sadducee? I don't ask people to keep the Sabbath, so strictly. I'm not saying you're a sinner because you're healing someone. Rather than that, I celebrate it. Well, I'm going to liken it to today. What makes us a Pharisee and a Sadducee in this present day and age? And I would move to Luke chapter 6, verses 37 to 42. And this speaks about judging others. It says, do not judge others, and God will not judge you. Do not condemn others, and God will not condemn you. Forgive others, and God will forgive you. Give to others, and God will give to you. Indeed, when you receive a full measure, a generous helping poured into your hands, all you can hold, the measure you use for others is the one that God will use for you. You know that verse that people love saying, give and it will come back to you. Good measures, pressed down, shaken together. And when we're asking God for things, we're like, give us good measures, pressed down, shaken together. Basically, whatever it is that you give to people in life, being good or bad, you will receive. Pressed down, shaken together, running over. And then Jesus told this parable says, one blind man cannot lead another one. If he does, then both of them will fall into a ditch. And then no pupil is greater than his teacher, but every pupil, when he has completed his training, will be instead like his teacher. And then he goes further to ask, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but pay no attention to the log in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, please brother, let me take that speck out of your eye, yet you cannot even see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. Yes, you. And yes, you, me. I mean, me too, because I'm human. I make mistakes and tend to judge others. First, take out the log of wood from your own eye, and then you'll be able to see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So what is Jesus trying to say in this context, and how does it relate to us today? There is this culture that's the world right now, this new normal. The world is raving on about it. And referencing the lead facilitator of the church, Celebration Church International, there was a time when he had, I think it was during the rebuke camp, and he prayed and he mentioned about this new normal that became the catchphrase following the COVID and everything. And God was giving a prophetic, insight into that. And so you ask, what is this new normal? Well, this new normal in the world is one of great wickedness, if you ask me. This new normal of where good is becoming evil and evil is becoming good, where on Twitter is known to be a violent place and people laugh like, yes, Twitter is a violent place. And I guess TikTok, I'm not on that app, but I think that's where the idea of cancel culture started. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. But basically, there is this culture of cancel culture. You cancel out people. When someone is doing something, oh, how quick you are to shout. And I will start first from the church, even for fellow Christians who are quick to condemn their pastors, condemn their fellow Christians and say, look at you, how could you be doing this? How could you be wearing this certain kind of outfit? How could a pastor be having, committed a crime? I'm always very fascinated when people are shocked that pastors do things that are wrong, because they're human. The moment you're feeling certainly, yes, they are pastors, they should be held to certain standards. It is not because they're pastors and they have a certain authority, doesn't mean it's an excuse for them to commit any actions they want or to live lives in an unholy manner or how they please. There's a whole sect of, I think it's in Jude,